Welcome back to Real Reactions. Make sure you like and sub. Let's get into it.
This is so wild. So this man called Cliff High developed a software program over 20 years ago that scanned the entire internet and analyzed thematic patterns and language that people were using all over the world to predict the future. Cliff High believed in our individual subconscious intuition, but he also believed in our interconnected consciousness that we all draw from whether we're aware of it or not. So using a technique that he called predictive linguistics, he wrote a program that was able to analyze all the keywords and phrases and thematic patterns and assign them an emotional value. It then uses a formula to gauge our emotional tensions and write a report on events that will happen in the future. Now, these predictions all came with a precondition that Cliff called temporal markers. And that's kind of like a precursor event, like a trigger event that has to happen before the prediction will come true. So the prediction will not happen until or unless the temporal marker or the trigger event happens first. So what did this program predict? Way back in 2009, this is crazy, honestly. The software program reported of a battle in our skies that got chaotic and out of hand between military jets and UFOs, and also, interestingly, UFOs against other UFOs. And this would mark the beginning of an era where non-human intelligence became a part of our everyday reality. And this was all to take place roughly 39 days after the trigger event happened, so after that temporal marker event. And that temporal marker event was Donald Trump being interviewed by Joe Rogan, which just happened the other day and is already the biggest podcast of all time. But let me explain why this is so wild. In 2009, when this prediction was made, Joe Rogan was far from being a household name like he is today. His podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, had its very first episode in December 2009. And back then, it was literally just Joe and a couple of his mates on their webcams in their lounge room. He had hosted Fear Factor, and he was the commentator for the UFC back then, but even then, the UFC was way smaller than what it is today. And Donald Trump being the president was not even in the conversation. In 2009, he was just a real estate mogul and the guy from The Apprentice. This kind of prediction back then was so far out of left field that it was hardly given any further thought by Cliff himself. And now, in 2024, President Donald Trump has just been on the Joe Rogan Experience, the biggest podcast in the world. And at the same time, we have so many military whistleblowers, Harvard lawyers, Stanford scientists, all coming out and saying UFOs and non-human intelligence are very real, and that we, the public, need to be made aware of this before it's potentially catastrophically forced upon us. The world is so crazy right now.
That's heavy.
That officially has me a little freaked out.
Yeah. 39 days after the interview, there's a war in our skies. UFOs against UFOs, our jet fighters against UFOs.
Sounds kind of blue beamy too, though.
It does sound kind of blue beamy, like projections or whatever. Yeah.
Just because it's in the skies.
Right. That's true. But the program also predicted that it's not going to be just human intelligence operating on the Earth anymore. That's crazy, dude. I wonder how true this is. I'd like to see some of the sources.
I want to know how true it is really bad right now, because it was a very compelling coinky dinky.
It's a person
With like an owl hat on.
Yeah.
When I turn red, say something, and I'll mix it into a song. Here we go.
Oh, yeah?
Oh no.
Turn red, say something.
Bro, what is wrong with people?
Dude's got some nose hairs.
Dude, it took him that long to wake up.
Man.
His body was having this natural reaction while he's asleep. Jeez.
Why do people mess with old people like that?
Todo ha cambiado desde el día que entraste en mi vida, más cuando te fuiste que...
Oh, their natural reaction is to just smack them.
This is one of the most bizarre facts about our universe, so pardon me while I break your brain for a second.
Can you explain quantum entanglement communications?
Yes, I don't think most people understand what I'm about to say anyway, but I will. The way quantum entanglement works is that you can take two particles, quantum entangle them, and then take those two particles and move them at any distance in the cosmos. And let's just say, for example, if you quantum entangle two electrons and you have them spinning in the same direction, and then you take one of those electrons and you shoot that thing out 100,000 light years from the original. If you then rotate the spin on the one electron, if you modify it so that its spin changes, the quantum entangled electron at any distance will simultaneously, in no time, switch its rotation also because they're quantum entangled.
Don't worry, we'll explain it a little more. But if you've seen this or read the book Three-Body Problem, it probably sounds familiar. And if you haven't, I'll give you the 10,000 level overview. There is an alien species whose home planet is not inhabitable, so they want to come to Earth to take over. The issue is that is going to take a significant amount of time, and right now they are technologically superior to Earth, but the way that our technology is advancing at a parabolic state, we, when they reach us, will be more advanced than them and will be able to fight them off. But because they have the technology of being able to utilize quantum entanglement, they created these sophons, sent one to Earth, where they can manipulate it on their home planet, and it will do the same manipulations on Earth because it happens instantaneously. And their whole goal is to mess with the science system and everything that's going on in Earth so that there's chaos that is created so that we do not progress past their level of advancement. Obviously, this is a made-up scenario, but this illustrates quantum entanglement. What you need to understand is we know quantum entanglement exists. We have proven it through experiments, and it causes a lot of issues for people's theorems like this guy's. Because the way that we think about space and time, this should not be able to happen, but it does. Here's some of the experiments if you guys want to check them out. You can pause if you want to see a screenshot. Why does it happen? Well, here's one potential explanation.
Bohm explains it in a different way, which is a very interesting way. And he says, if you imagine that you've got an aquarium in which you have a fish swimming, you have a TV camera facing the front of the aquarium, one facing the side of the aquarium, and you have a monitor attached to each camera. Now you also imagine further that you come from a culture that's never seen aquariums, never seen fish, never seen monitors or cameras. All you are privy to is the two images on these screens. He says that maybe, if you look at these two screens, you're going to see a side view of a fish and a frontal view of a fish. And because you don't know what the deeper reality is, the reality of the aquarium, you may assume that these are two separate things. But two different fish, two different objects. But every time one fish moves, the other is going to make a corresponding movement. And you may then jump to the conclusion that somehow the one fish is signaling the other, or communicating to the other to say, hey, do this, instantaneously. And Bohm says this is what we've done with subatomic particles, that we assume that an instantaneous communication is going on, and that's not really what's going on at all. At a deeper level, a very holographic level of reality, every particle in the universe collapses to a sort of cosmic unity. They're not signaling each other. They're like that fish where there's the level of the aquarium.
So here's my question to you. Is quantum entanglement evidence that there can be instantaneous communication? Or our dimension is dictated by length, width, height, and time? Is it possible that these things are actually connected at a higher dimension so we perceive them as two different things when really it's all connected? Is this just evidence of simulation theory and that we live in a holographic universe? This is one of the most...
That's pretty compelling.
You did a pretty good job with that. Well, Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. They couldn't explain it, so after they were done with their study they did in Germany or whatever, where all those guys got together and created quantum physics, sort of, and that aspect they couldn't explain. They called it spooky action at a distance. But to me, that's God, or proof that there is a God, or some sort of.
How does that equate?
No matter what we do, we're never going to find out what really is making everything happen, and it's designed that way.
I agree that there's a God, but I disagree with that statement you just made.
And I will take it even further. I wish that Einstein, at that point, who is a Christian, by the way, instead of calling it spooky action at a distance, I wish he would have said, there is a God, and it's here in that spooky action at a distance.
Yeah, but that statement doesn't make any sense. If you look back since the beginning of time, there's a lot of things scientifically man did not understand, right? We didn't understand weather patterns. We didn't understand what lightning was or how it worked. We didn't understand how birds could fly through the air and soar around. But eventually, we figured all of these things out. And we're just getting into quantum physics now. We're just getting there to the study of it. I think that we will figure out quantum physics. We already know how to entangle particles quantumly. You don't think science will continue to advance in that field?
I really think God's going to be one step ahead. So, for instance, if you do believe, which a lot of people believe, that we are in a simulation, that we will never be able to hack ourselves out of that simulation. Therefore, the game we're in is rigged for us not to be able to. Just no more than you could hack yourself. A character in a video game could hack themselves out of that game.
Well, hang on, let me premise this. If you compare it to a video game, the actual player of the game isn't in the game. He's sitting there with a controller controlling the character.
Yeah, but I'm just using that as an example. I'm not...
But I think it relates to what you're saying. If we're in a simulation, we're not actually in the simulation. We're playing it from outside. Our consciousness is outside of the situation, jacked in, just like the Matrix.
I see your logic there.
Yeah. I'm more likely to go thinking that's probably what's going on.
Perhaps.
But to think that man's not going to progress in science has just been disproven ever since the beginning of man. That doesn't make any sense to think that, in my opinion.
Well, what I think of is, I think the layers just get deeper and deeper, and then every time, nobody has got it all figured out. I'm just not that convinced they will figure it out as a human species anyway.
That's interesting. That's like a natural block you put on it.
Well, it's like
man, we can't do it, rather than we can do it.
We get closer and closer. I think maybe AI might figure it out, but I'm not sure if we can.
Weird. Okay. I don't understand putting that natural scientific or naturally applying a block to man's scientific ability.
Well, part of the reason I say that is because as we go into this, if you look at science, which is a relatively new thing, the more we know, it seems like the less we know.
Well, the more we know, the more we figure out there's more to be learned.
That's the other way of saying it.
Yeah.
We'll have to agree to disagree.
Yeah, that's an interesting difference we have in our opinions, or what would you call that? I guess I just don't think anything's really impossible. But you think man has scientific limitations that they'll naturally hit eventually, because we haven't hit them yet, and just not be able to go any further.
Right, like we are animals in a cage.
Well, that may be, but we'll continue to find more signs of that cage.
Yeah, perhaps. Right. And then we'll continue to, the more we know, realize there's more we need to know.
Yeah. But if you think about it in terms of, like, let's just say electricity, when the story of Benjamin Franklin discovering electricity, now all of a sudden we've completely understood it, we create it, we control it how we want to, and we use it to our advantage. Mm-hmm. That's gonna
definitely. I'm not gonna argue that we're not making like a lot of knowledge and scientific headway. I'm not gonna argue that at all. As a matter of fact, that's why I say if there's something that could figure it out, my bet would be that AI will be the thing that says this is how the universe works.
But man's gonna push AI to do that.
True.
Man's gonna create AI.
Man created AI.
Just like it created microscopes.
Yep.
And use it as a tool to move forward.
Because it's just going to be able to, because whatever all this is, this entanglement thing, and it's something that we obviously can't see with our eyes. We can kind of start to see it a little bit. We just see
it can
symptoms.
Be measured.
We see the symptoms.
As a matter of fact, the exact moment of entanglement is measurable. I read an article about it recently. That's why I know it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We don't know how it works, though.
Yeah, I don't think they fully understand the communication aspect.
Right. The instantaneous over vast spaces of time.
But they'll figure it out. They're already theorizing on it.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out just like they figured everything else out.
Entanglement is the wildest thing to come out in forever.
Yeah. It's just a new frontier of science. Mm-hmm. That's really all it is. In my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree with that.
Quite a few people have been talking about this recently, but many of us may have been experimented on at a young age without ever knowing. This was around the early 2000s, where many people specifically remember being a part of a program called GATE, which stands for Gifted and Talented Education. And according to people who were a part of this program, they were separated from their main class, taken to a windowless or dim-lit room, and made to do different tasks like solving puzzles and hearing different frequencies through headphones. Now, there's a couple reasons why people are suspicious of this program in the first place. For starters, although the class was meant to be for students who were above average academically, most of the people who were actually in the program recall only having average grades compared to some of their peers who were not involved in the program. On top of that, while much of the curriculum was just normal puzzles, many people recall being asked to do seemingly impossible tasks like guessing numbers, shapes, or objects that were covered up or just out of view. This led to a lot of speculation about the classes, with many people believing that the program was created by a government agency in order to find children with supernatural-like abilities. Some people went even further, stating that they may have been looking for people with supernatural abilities in order to shut them down to prevent future threats, or that they were trying to recruit them, do more tests on them, and see how they can use that power for themselves. Quite a few people have been talking about this recently.
Definitely that last part.
Yeah, definitely the last part. Yeah.
For sure. That's interesting. Do you have any memories of like anything like that when you were a kid?
When he said the gate, it sounded familiar, but
any of the tests that he mentioned?
Not that I experienced.
Yeah, me neither. The only thing I remember frequency-wise is like hearing tests. Like put your finger up when you hear this tone.
But I definitely believe that human development, we will get more telepathic and our minds will become more powerful, and I believe that's part of where we're headed.
The Great Pyramid, over 2 million blocks of stone, and nobody realized that they're all different 2 million blocks. They're all, each individual stone is totally different from the other one. Now you have to take into consideration the subterranean part of the Great Pyramid, like the subterranean shaft, which cuts through solid stone and goes down 65 meters. How in the world did they cut that through solid stones that were already stacked? Some type of a laser cutting tool. Mud ramp theory, the floating theory is a farce. You can't float these stones. What are you displacing mass with for that level of mass in water? Highly unlikely that they would be able to displace that much mass to keep them floating. Once you start really analyzing the stones, the structures, the way that they're interlocked, you see there's an interlocking design system. And each stone is custom made to be put in place, which means it needs to be created at the moment that it's needed. How do you do that? How you're gonna get this stone up this mud ramp or float it up into this area and then put it into a spot that it doesn't really fit? Oh, I made a mistake. It doesn't go here. Doesn't make any sense.
I guess I didn't know that all those stones were unique.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that either. That they're all cut to specific ways to interlock with each other, which I guess makes sense, but that's interesting. The other thing I'm kind of curious about is the subterranean levels of the pyramid. Just how deep did that stuff go? There's more information here.
This is the weird thing about Giza, my friend, is that there are things that have gone underground in Egypt that, for whatever reason, Joe, is just off limits to the public. There's something called the Osiris Shaft, which is located directly under the causeway between the Sphinx and the second pyramid. And it goes about 100 feet underground. It's carved out of the limestone bedrock. It's the creepiest place I've ever been in my life. It's disturbing.
Why is it disturbing?
I don't know, Joe. Well, there's human bones in there. I stepped on it. I didn't even know.
What?
Yeah.
That's the shaft right there?
Yes, that's the entrance into it. And then you go straight down from there.
God, look at the line of people.
Yeah, you got to pay $2,000 to get in there.
Litter floating around.
It's everywhere.
Potato chip bags. Really?
So that's the first shaft. So it's 3 different shafts. And you go down, and here's where it gets, this is the crazy part. When you get to the 3rd level, which is completely dark and freaky, there was a side tunnel. Zahi Hawass himself, there was a documentary, it was either 96 or 99. He went down there, and he's standing in front of this tunnel that went sideways. And he says, it's yet to be explored, and I don't know what's down there. And I'm thinking, the hell you don't know what's down there? Like, you never walked down there? But Joe, they've since sealed it up. It's like cinder blocks. They sealed it up.
What?
Yes. There's
what?
Swear to God.
Why would they seal it up?
That's a really, hey Joe, I really want to know that the answer to that question.
Bro, they are hiding something from the public. They have to be.
I know. Why all these mysteries? Why do we have to have all these mysteries?
Oh, you mean why are they choosing to do that?
Yeah.
Because something's going on that they either want to utilize for themselves at a governmental level, or it would reveal something and just flip our whole past on its head.
Fine.
I know, I'm the same way. But if you were deep in control and you wanted to control the entire public of the earth and keep them where they're at because you like it like that.
So existing power structures.
That's my thought, because it's the power structure in place that's keeping it silent, right? So it's got to be.
And these pyramids were all over the world a little bit. Those are the biggest ones, but...
Yeah, I want to see how deep the pyramids go real quick. Like it says that there's a deep inside Giza's Great Pyramid, there's a void that stretches for 30 meters. A hidden tunnel runs underneath the pyramid near the main entrance on the northern face. The tunnel is 30 feet long. An unfinished chamber is 30 meters below the plateau's surface. 30 meters below the plateau's surface.
The raw, unfiltered scientific proof for what the pyramids were really built for. This is what a real Egyptian tomb looks like, and this is the biggest tomb in the world, the Great Pyramid of Giza. The closer you look, the more you realize this pyramid was definitely not made for burying the dead, because the materials they used to build it are exactly what we'd use today to create an electric current. Giza used to be covered with bright white casing stones that were virtually airtight, made out of polished limestone brought from Tura, a quarry 500 miles away. Oh, they just wanted the pyramids to look all nice and white and cute, right? So much that they were willing to drag stones the length of Florida away to do so, for the aesthetic. This special limestone from Tura happens to have less magnesium in it than regular limestone, making it an ideal insulator of electricity, as well as perfect for reflecting sunlight to keep the inside cool. The interior chambers of the pyramid were built with rose granite containing 85% quartz, which is piezoelectric, meaning it produces a small electric charge when moved or squeezed, the same quartz that's used to power a watch battery or a barbecue lighter. Granite also ionizes the air inside the chambers, which further increases the conductivity of electricity. On top of being sourced from Aswan, another quarry hundreds of miles away, the granite slabs inside Giza have these weird structural designs to them that don't exactly look good and are just incredibly difficult to make. Why on earth would you build a roof like this that just makes the job 10 times harder, using 80-ton stone blocks from hundreds of miles away that you can't even see from inside the chamber when it's done? Historians will tell you they were relieving chambers, meant to keep the room from collapsing from the great weight of the pyramid overhead, even though the chambers below had no such relief. On the other hand, if you were somehow able to apply pressure to these chambers, you'd get an electric charge from the quartz. A lot of it. But electricity can't just exist if we want to utilize it for energy. It needs to get directed through something in order for us to make use of it, an electric current. Copper is often used in wires to do just that. And take a wild guess what a remote camera revealed in the pyramid's narrow shafts just a few years back. 2 copper handles embedded into the stone at the end of the shaft, the only metal to have ever been confirmed in Giza, as well as a set of what appear to be instructions that looks like a wiring diagram painted on the side of the shaft, to which modern Egyptologists claim these handles were used with ropes to pull jars up the shaft. They're just getting desperate at this point. These shafts really have no confirmed purpose. They're commonly referred to as air vents, but some of them don't even lead to the outside. In 2013, former Egyptian Antiquities Minister Zahi Hawass was accused of theft of Egyptian artifacts from the pyramid. In the list of items rumored to have been stolen, there was one that stood out from the rest. Long copper wires. A strange artifact by any means, and just what you'd need to complete an electric current. So were the pyramids built as giant batteries? I mean, we have all the pieces in place, but how exactly would this battery even work? Aerospace engineer Chris Dunn popularized the Giza power plant theory by kind of proving it with actual science, hard numbers, and a scale model. From the top, this is what the inside of Giza looks like: a top or king's chamber with a lower queen's chamber underneath it, a large slanted shaft, the grand gallery connecting both chambers, and a bottom subterranean chamber with a bunch of long narrow shafts leading into each. According to Dunn, the pyramid is what's called a coupled oscillator, a device that's connected to a larger vibrating body in such a way that energy can be transferred between them, converting vibrational energy, the natural resonance of the earth, into microwave energy. Now the earth, it vibrates, producing frequencies in the form of natural underground seismic activity, the Schumann resonances in Earth's electromagnetic fields, as well as the movement of water in key locations just below Earth's surface, which also creates vibrational frequencies. The entire process starts in the subterranean chamber, which was built directly above underground aquifers with powerful flowing water right under the pyramids. A convenient location for the perfect coincidence theory. It's said that the flowing water and possibly even seismic activity of the Earth would create vibrational waves that resonate throughout the pyramid. vibrational waves that would be maximized at the center of mass of any object, and Giza just so happens to sit at the center of landmass of the world. Coincidence. Now the real kicker was when traces of zinc and hydrochloric acid were found in the shafts leading into the Queen's Chamber. Dunn suggests that some ancient form of these two chemicals were poured down the shafts and mixed together in the chamber, which would trigger a chemical reaction, one that releases hydrogen gas, a proven process using the exact trace chemicals that were found in the shafts. The gas would travel from the Queen's Chamber through the Grand Gallery and up into the King's Chamber, while the pressure of the gas compresses the granite quartz and creates piezoelectricity, another proven process. Vibrations from below would trigger resonators in the Grand Gallery, which it was believed that 27 acoustic devices were placed in the empty slots that can be found here. The compressed quartz would create the spark for the vibrations to energize the hydrogen atoms into a microwave energy beam, which would reach the King's Chamber through this 4.8 times 8.4 inch watertight shaft cut into the granite. Conveniently, the perfect size for the hydrogen microwave wavelength at 21 centimeters, and the exact dimensions of what we call a waveguide today, a structure that guides the transmission of energy waves in one direction. And let me remind you, granite is harder than steel. Cutting a shaft like this is damn near impossible with known ancient technology, and definitely not something they do for fun. These microwaves would further resonate in the King's Chamber, which was tuned to a very specific frequency using those layers of stones in the roof. Remember those incredibly difficult stones above the chamber? That's how they tuned the pyramid's frequency. The sarcophagus in this room is expected to have been some source of high voltage, like the Baghdad battery. Further ionize the hydrogen and make that room superconductive. Gold-capped pips, as we believe the pyramids to have had, would also make the perfect conductor to attract the electricity and send it up into the atmosphere. Sounds like it's time for me to take my meds. A super pseudoscientific theory and highly theoretical at that, until you realize in 2018, studies proved that the pyramids can focus electromagnetic energy in their internal chambers and also directly beneath them. That's real, quantifiable, scientific evidence that supports this theory. Many archaeologists also report electromagnetic readings inside of the pyramids and directly above them. So the pyramid's exterior was made with an insulator, the interior with conductors, and the chambers with material that produces electricity. Are these all just coincidences? And even if we did have electricity generated in the pyramids, how would this energy even be distributed for everyone to use? Our boy Tesla may have known the answer and was silenced from revealing it to the world. Let's see if it's up.
Man, that was one of the best quick explanations I've ever seen of the power plant theory.
I mean, the battery thing kind of makes sense, like a giant-ass battery.
Yeah. It's not even really a battery, because a battery gets energy from somewhere else and stores it. This is like a generator.
Yeah, it's like a generator.
Yeah.
Right.
This is like the theory I subscribe to with the pyramids. The rest of it just doesn't make sense for me. There's no like hard evidence that those pyramids specifically were a tomb. Like none. It just doesn't make sense. All of those different pieces. Quartz, generating electricity, that shaft underneath that maybe isn't a break room and instead was for water, and all of it working together to create energy. That's just where I'm at with it.
If it was creating energy, what the hell were they doing with that energy?
Who knows? If it was people who built that, our past is so much different than we ever thought. But it's almost hard to believe that it's even people that would have built it. Like, it just seems like it would have had to have been aliens, unless we've gone through some sort of crazy, traumatic, devastating event on the planet, catastrophic. And yet, the only evidence that still exists is pyramids.
And if in the video, like, they're showing shit shooting out the top and going somewhere to provide energy, then why don't we have evidence of something to receive that energy and then distribute it again or something like that?
Because what if the thing receiving the energy is like light years away? Or what if it's a ship and it itself is mobile?
I wish they would just figure it out so we know.
So tell us what you think our ancient past might have been like. Are the pyramids actually power generators, or were they just tombs? What do you really think? Put that in the comment section below. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and join us for the next one.